Good afternoon or good morning to those who have joined us already. Welcome to Tango's webinar today. It's actually the finale of our Modern Workplace series. The topic today is From Reactive to Strategic, How AI is Redefining the Workplace. I'm going to leave about a minute just for those still joining us. All right, we can go ahead and get started. I'm sure more will start to trickle in, but to kick off the housekeeping bits, this is a recorded webinar. So for those who arrive late, we will be sending you the full recording after the live session today, so no worries. Okay, so a couple housekeeping items. There is a chat button as well as a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can chat with your peers, interact with us in the chat. You can drop your Q&A and we'll get to those at the end. And we also have a related content module, which you will see the following 4 webinars, which are part of our entire Modern Workplace webinar series. You can find the links to those, save those for later. We also dropped a bunch of other related workplace content that talks about some of this AI in the workplace topic that we'll be discussing today. But without further ado, I would like to pass it off to our speaker today, Ross, to get started.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ross Leibowitz. I'm the Senior Director of Workplace here at Tango Analytics. I have over 25 years experience building solutions for the workplace. And what we're going to do today is really focus on how do we use AI to transform the workplace and the workplace strategy. And what we want to really talk about is moving from a reactive to more of a predictive, from more of a static to a more dynamic, and really discover how the power of knowing through the data and intelligence leads to the impact of acting through AI-driven strategies that can really future-proof your workplace. So what we're going to do is talk a little bit about Tango and what Tango is, and then we'll get into a little bit about some AI primer, and then get into really a number of different ways in which we're using AI in the workplace for that, and then leave time for questions. If you do have questions, there is a box on the screen for you to put your questions in. That's being monitored, and hopefully we'll address them throughout the webinar, or we can also address them at the end of the webinar. So please don't hesitate anytime there's a question to add that into that. Okay, so let's dive into Tango. So Tango's platform is a platform of connected solutions that simplifies decision-making across the real estate facilities life cycle by giving you the data and insights you need to manage and optimize your real estate portfolio at both a strategic and an operational level. Tango's solutions are fine by themselves, but they're also better together. And you'll see through, as we go through this, how we're linking a number of these solutions. But when you look across the 4 pillars that we talk about, we have real estate, which covers all of the financial obligations that you have for a building. You have project and maintenance, which really covers how we operate the building. Energy and sustainability, which covers around how efficient the buildings are and some of our carbon reduction initiatives. And then the workplace, which is my area of expertise, which really covers how we use the building. How this asset that we are managing, that we're putting financial terms to, really gets to be used to carry out the mission of the business, carry out the work of the business, is really around everything in the workplace. And we're going to dive deeper into those. Um, and we're going to dive a little bit more into what the workplace is, because the workplace really covers a number of sub areas. Occupancy, which measures really how well we're utilizing the workplace. Even before the pandemic, we weren't 100% utilized of every desk every day. But then since back with hybrid working, we're really below 50%, 40% of the time we're utilizing the desks in the office. So we're going to talk about how occupancy is used to do that. And then the data from the occupancy is really essential on how that feeds into how AI, it becomes a good input for AI to start to use that to make recommendations to help you optimize that. We have the space management. Space management is really a detail of the inventory around what's in the workplace. So think about what are my conference rooms, what are my workstations, what are my closed offices, how many floors do I have, how many desks, as well as who has them, what departments, how have I allocated these across, what are my neighborhoods for that. And so it's really a planning tool that helps you plan and manage all of the workplace. When you go to Reserve, Reserve is an employee facing view that allows employees to book their workstations, to book conference rooms, parking spaces, other things around that. And it's how all of the other non-workplace related people are interacting with the system, with the workplace. We also have visitor management, which allows for you to manage your visitors in the system and register and track visitors within that. And all these modules work together to form an overall workplace solution inside the Tango platform for that. Okay. So when we start to talk about AI, I want to just give a little primer of what AI is and some of the history around it, just to level set, because we're going to come back and talk about some of these terms in the future. And AI isn't new. It's been around for a long time. And it's evolved with different methods and different abilities. Today, when we think about AI, we're really thinking about what's called the generative AI, the latest version of that. That's what's all in the news. And, I think I come across an article, 2-3 times a day that I'm reading about, the pros and the cons around AI. I just had a very interesting breakfast conversation with my wife around the power consumption that AI is needed, and the impacts to our society around that. And it's just, but AI is not new. We're really now in another phase of that, which is generative AI. And so when you start to talk about the different types of AI that were there around that, is what you have is the first form is more rules-based AI, and it learned from the data that we had, and we would train it for that. The same thing when you got into the machine learning, it would start to have more information. We would have different algorithms, neural networks, and different capabilities. What makes the generative AI that we have today very different is the amount of data that we are feeding it and the amount of data it has access to it. So if you think about machine learning or first or second generation, it's sort of much like you're training or teaching the system how to do something. Like you would train a dog how to do a trick or what's right or wrong. With generative AI, it learns from all the data it has access to, and these are what it pulls in is what's called large language models, or LLMs. And there are many out there. ChatGPT is an excellent LLM that's there. And it can consume data from all across the internet, from all public domains. You can also feed it your own data. When we use our system, we don't feed client data to the training of that. Our client data stays private. We're not using any of our client data in any of our generations. But Gen I really learns how to do things. It's more like, where you teach a dog a trick or what's right or wrong. Generative AI is much more like a child, and it learns how a child will learn and go through that. It's kind of, scary when you think about it, in the sense that it is something that will continue to advance, and it's advancing very, very rapidly for that. And then when we look at, Tango's expertise, we've been using machine learning for years within our Tango predictive analytics module. And we use that for retail location modeling and site selection. And so we have a deep knowledge on machine learning, and have built up our knowledge on generative AI, and starting to release Gen I products into the market that are specific for the workplace. And we're going to cover those in a little while for that. So when we start to look at the uses of AI, I like to break this up into 3 distinct buckets around that. One is, how can we use AI to save us time? What are some of the manual tasks? What are some of the things that we're doing that we can automate and give it to the system to do for us? Another big area is, how can we use AI to understand all the data that we have? It's, I call it, finding hidden insights. It's great, if you know the questions to ask, and then you get certain questions, but what if you don't know what questions to ask, or the questions you're asking are not the ones you should be? And what's nice with AI is it can actually really tell you insights without you necessarily thinking about that way of what the data would be. So it's analyzing that. We're going to cover these cases as well. And also, how we're able to improve our overall experiences with the system in the workplace. How can AI, we'll talk about agents and chatbots, start to help our employees interact and work with the workplace more efficiently within that. So we'll cover some examples when we get to that section as well. So let's talk about automation of tasks from first. So in the automation of tasks, one that I like to bring up is lease abstraction. Now, people will say is, hey, lease abstraction's been there for a while, and people have been doing lease abstraction for a while, and they have. But what they've been doing was what's called OCR, or optical character recognition, and they're doing it based on keywords, and they're performing, abstractions around that. And it doesn't necessarily have the context of what you're trying to do. So one of the areas that we've just recently released is the ability to do using our AI engines to do specific lease clause abstraction from that. And the difference is, with the AI, it's performing the abstraction, is it's learning about the types of clauses, the type of information, and it's improving on that, as opposed to keywords, which are very limited to what's there. If all our leases were universal, then keywords would be great. Our leases aren't all universal. We have many different landlords with many different ways in which they're writing up certain things. And so you do need to understand the context when you're trying to find something. And that's really where the AI is coming in and helping. Let me give you a really powerful example of something that recently happened in which we're using this. And we have a lot of clients in Canada, and some of them are grocery chains. And what they do is they build out a whole shopping center, and then they lease out they anchor one end, and then they lease out all of the spaces. Now, they usually put in clauses that say that any of their tenants can't sell foods, can't sell groceries, because they want people coming to their store for that. And that's very common practice. Well, the laws in Canada changed, and they ruled those to be anti-competitive practices. And they changed the laws and so that you can no longer do that. Now our clients needed to go through all of their leases and understand every single one in which they needed to find uh, clauses and leases that had this anti-competitive practices for that. And it would be a very manual um, operation. And again, they're not all written the same. You can't really use keywords for it, depending upon the type, what it was said, depending on the type of business that they are for that. And so we are able to use our AI engine and help our clients in AI abstraction to go through and to do this. We're really happy with the results that we got from one of our major clients. Is they were able to find 93% of the time they found those leases that had that, which was a really high success rate. To put it in perspective, a human doing this manually over a course of days and weeks is expected to only have about a 90% accuracy rate. So we're really excited that we're able to bring in our lease abstraction AI and use that to be able to automate a process, get it higher than what a human would have done from an accuracy point of view, and do it in a fraction of the time for that. So that's one really good example of how we're able to do that. We're able to abstract out other information from a lease and be able to get information. You can do it as supplemental. Another case is the ability to go through and do an audit of all your leases, have all the ones that were human audited, and go in and say, okay, where did they make mistakes? Where are things being done? And then you also, within our process, a human can check the AI. That's also an important thing to keep in mind when you're deploying this, is you do want to have the ability for a human to check, but you also want the ability for the system to check the human. It gives you a nice little set of checks and balances throughout. So another area that we're using our AI engines for is the ability to do invoice abstraction and to be able to understand invoices that are coming in. Invoices have a problem because they're highly variable data. The form itself is very different from vendor to vendor. The data is never in one spot. It's really hard to use optical character recognition to try to find some of this. The accuracy just is not there because you don't know the layouts or where things are and what things are being called, especially if you are a multinational and you're dealing with different units across. And so what we're able to do, and we do this in our utility invoices that go into our energy and sustainability module, is we're able to come in and feed in all of these invoices into our AI, and it's able to go in and abstract out all of the information that's needed in order for us to track our energy and sustainability, to be able to set up payments, to pay the invoices from that. And it's not just limited to utilities. You can think about things with projects and maintenance, and if you have vendor invoices. Again, it really has the context of what it's trying to do. It understands the project that you're potentially doing. It understands the information, and then it's applying that as a human would in order to read that information from there. So another way that we're using automation is really in the ability to create automated blocking and stacking plans. So what we've done is, by training our AI, we're using what's called a bin packing algorithm. And it's able to analyze the assignments of the departments on the floor plan. It understands the spatial relationships between the spaces, what space is close to another space, how am I looking at that so I don't set a department where I have two closed offices on one side of the floor and then all of my workstations all the way on the other side of the floor. So if anybody needs to talk to their manager, they would need to spend 5 minutes walking across the floor. No, it actually understands that spatial information. But then what we do is we feed into it all the information that we need to know around the forecasting data from that on that. And so what it's able to do is really look to reblock the floor and create contiguous assignments that you're seeing on that. But also what's important is it also creates free spaces for continuous assignments. So you can see in the picture, you have in the middle a whole set of free space that our AI engine came in and was able to create. Now, what's important about that is it now allows that space, since it's a contiguous area, to be able to be used for any future needs that I have. Maybe I have a new team moving in, or I need expansion, or other things with minimum disruption to other people within that floor around that. And it could take in a number of different inputs in these decisions. We could do department affinities. We're bringing in forecasting data. You'll see a little bit later how we combine that with some of our occupancy information to bring in broader ones with that. And what we're able to do with this is have the ability to automatically create what we call space requests and process a space request. It can take in a number of changes for a workstation. Say you have a department that is growing by 10 people in the next 6 months. You can give that information, and it can start to use that in order to create the optimal floor plan for you on that. And the same thing is if you have things shrinking or you have a new project starting within the system. So those are some examples really around how we're using AI in order to help automate a lot of our manual processes that we're doing today. So let's talk about using some in the system for hidden insights and analytics. How do I know what I don't know? How can the system help me do that? And so there is a term inside of artificial intelligence called predictive analytics. And what predictive analytics is doing is it's taking all of the data that's available and it's creating relationships and looking at trends that's there. This is something we've been doing for years in our store life cycle, and we brought it over into our workplace capabilities. And it uses statistical predictions on what really will happen in the future around the data for that. And so it really allows us to move away our biases and move away other information that we would think about it and let the system sort of tell us what's there. Now, obviously, you'd want to go in and look and make sure that this data is what you need it to be. The system may say this line of business, we're predicting that this floor no longer needs to be in operation because you have too many desks, but it doesn't know that all of a sudden your CEO is going to change the flexible hybrid to everybody in the office 4 days a week. So a human always needs to come in with the AI and bring their knowledge into that. But let's talk about how we're doing that with the workplace analytics and using it on that. So building on our experience with the store lifecycle, we're using predictive analytics in our workplace utilization module to understand how the workplace is predicted to be used, and how many seats are needed, all the way down to how many seats in a department is needed on any given day of the week or month, or how many different capabilities. And the way that we're doing that is we're collecting utilization data from a number of different sources through a system. We take badge data. We could take your network or Wi-Fi data. We use sensor data if you have sensors in it. We use your reservation data from our reservation module. We mix all those together. We feed it into the AI around how the workplace, along with the way the workplace is set up today, how our neighborhoods are created, what departments are using them. And it's trained to look at that and to spot trends, to understand what's happening. So I'm looking across time for how a department may be using a um, a set of workstations in a neighborhood for that, and it will give us the results about really how much you need for that particular department on that particular floor, and it could get into really um, uh, um, smaller amounts around what we're doing. We can start looking about it for the days of the week that they need for that. And one area that I'm interested, and we're going to start tracking this a lot more, is to see how seasonal impacts the predictions of the system. We all know that during the summer, especially in Europe, our overall utilization is at its lowest levels. And so we want the AI to look at that and say, hey, during the summer, you don't need as many desks. Maybe you can start to shutter a floor for a month or 2 floors for a month, saving on energy and saving on cleaning and maintenance. And so we're starting to look and see how many variables the AI really is taking into account to give us predictions around how best. Because we're really trying to get to a point where the workplace is much more dynamic and not really as static, and we can start to have it shift over time, whether it be shifting week by week or different days of the week or different months, depending upon really what the predicted needs of the workplace are. So I'm going to actually bring these all together in a moment, but I wanted to first stop and talk about another big AI use, and the fastest growing AI segment, and you hear this all the time in commercials and the news, is around the creation of AI agents. And I wanted to just sort of explain a little bit about what an AI agent is and how do they work. And an AI agent is really is a form of autonomous AI that learns how to achieve specific goals and utilizes multiple steps to get to those goals. You can consider it, at times, it's sort of a digital employee, and it learns how to do what it's doing and improve what it has over time. Agents can talk to other agents, and it can grow from there. And you can get very sophisticated with how these agents can work and do. But really what the power of that is, we're building agents to do specific tasks, and we're saying, this agent, go ahead and optimize my space. And so I'm going to give you a preview of something that we're doing along that, where we're really using an agent to help us orchestrate and plan around what we're doing within that. So we have a video that we're going to play. And this is a agent that uses both the predictive analytics as well as the automated blocking and stacking that I talked about before to help us go and create an overall scenario. So we start with the building. The AI agent's looking across all of our building and saying which ones have the ability to be optimized. And so we're looking at our utilizations, and we're saying this building's around 63%. We've targeted to be 80%, and it gives us a number of desks. There's a certain amount of desks that are just not being utilized. And then the agent starts to drop down into the lower levels and says, okay, where are those desks? So it's starting to look at different floors. So it can look at the second floor here, and it's saying, great, I found here 12 desks that, again, that are not being utilized. We can do something with that. Well, but we do all our allocations at department levels. So let's dive down into the departments. What departments on that second floor are using that? And it finds one here that really has 8 desks. We've over allocated this. It has 8 desks that doesn't have it. But it also actually found a couple of them that have not enough desks. So it can work in that case where it's helping us get things ahead of time. So all of that information actually gets fed into what we talked about before with that automated blocking and stacking capabilities. And so it's creating these space requests, and it's saying for this, for the business services tech, we're going to get rid of 7 workstations and 1 office. I'm going to go in and potentially add for the other ones I need to have, because one of the fears is I'm not going to have enough for a particular department. The system will highlight that and get that to you. And so what you're seeing here is it's automatically going through and it's reducing and reblocking the floor. All of this started with the agent trying to find the information. And then that information is brought over and brought to you in a scenario that you can start to manage and tweak. We're not losing the human element. We're going to make a recommendation on what you can do, but it's really up to you as the space planner in order to make that final decision around that. Because the system's not going to know that the marketing group just moved 6 months ago, and there were some IT issues around that move, and they lost 2 days of productivity, and you still hear about it as the space planner and facilities manager, and there's no way you're going to move them again, but the system may have recommended that. But that is now the human element comes into that so that you're able to put in your knowledge and you're working with the lines of business in order to find out what's there. What's nice about this is it takes a lot of that manual work that we've done for years, and I built tools that would help do all this manual work. Well, the next piece is let the system do that manual work for you, freeing the planners up, freeing all you guys up in order to go and to work with the lines of business, in order to better have that connection about how the space is working for them and what you can do and what better ways in which things can work. So that leads into then really talking about how we're improving the overall employee's experience with using AI for that. And another big area of AI is what's called chatbots. You probably have seen them all over the place. I'm sure you've used them in banking and other areas. And these are, again, autonomous AI agents that really simulate human conversation, some better than others for that. And when I was in college, I got my degree in computer science. And we studied this concept called a Turing test or Turing machine. Turing test. And what the Turing test does is it talks about how a computer can mimic a user. And the idea is that the ultimate area of a Turing test is can the AI, can the computer mimic a user so well that a person can't tell the difference between who is the person that's communicating on one end and who the computer is on the other side. And so AI chatbots strive to do this. There are some that are really powerful and come close to fooling all the users all the time on that. But and that's really what we're trying to do. Is a chatbot is really trying to act as a person on the other side. And when we're talking internally around use cases and how things are, we stop and we just talk and say, okay, I am now your administrative assistant or your agent, and let's talk, how would we do something for that? And then we take that and we bring it in the agent and say, okay, how well did it do relative to our conversations around that? Surprisingly, sometimes it does better because it has more information and it knows what to ask, because it's learning all the time around that. And so when we talk about how we're applying that to that, is we're developing an AI chatbot that really allows the employees to interact with the bot to make reservations or request services within the system. What's nice is the AI has a lot of information about the user making the request around it. We know things, such as your preferences, what days of the week do you come into the office? What are your favorite workstations? What are your past reservations? What are other teammates that you work with? all this that you are using the system for, the AI can do that and really tailor the experience to be something for you, like you would get with a real administrative assistant. They understand that you go into the Dallas office, and they would go in and make a reservation for you in the Dallas office. So we're doing all of this, and we're training it to have these natural conversations about what you need without it being too chatty, without it being scripted. It's going to follow what you want to do, making recommendations upon what workstations or what room to book for you. And then what we're able to do is, when you start to combine this in the context in which you're doing, is, say you have a problem and you're with a projector. You walk in a conference room and the projector is not working. If you go to fill out a form, it's okay, where are you located? What's your problem? What's going on? The form doesn't have context. The AI has that context of who you are, where you are in that. And if you say, I'm having a problem, the projector's not working, that's all you need to say. And the agent has enough information there to basically confirm, say, okay, you're in this conference room, you're doing this is what I'm seeing. Is that all good? I'm going to get somebody on it right away. And be able to dispatch somebody quickly to you, because it understands that you have a meeting and it, in that room, and you have probably 10 people there waiting for you. And so the other thing is, these chatbots become really ubiquitous in how we could deploy them. We're going to deploy it first inside our reserve application, but we're looking at it being deployed across anything that you're interacting with, whether it be Teams or Slack, on your phone, any ways in which you can start to use these and start to say, hey, I need to do this. AI, tell me, ask Tango, tell me what I need to do, for this. And so very quickly and easily have this interaction within that. Okay. And so this chatbot, we are quickly coming to our beta. If you're interested in being a beta program for the chatbot, please reach out to your account manager, your customer success manager, and we can have a conversation around that. And the chatbot for reservations, using everything that's in reserve today. It doesn't. We're not using any other private information from that. We're not training it on your information. It is looking, and we've set goals for how quickly we can go from your start of your request to the time that we complete. We're tracking how many times we've abandoned a session, and we'll be looking at why things got abandoned and how we could be less chatty. But we're not using any other privacy information from that. I'm going to touch the other questions a little later on that. So, I covered a lot, and it's overwhelming. I live and breathe this every day. Almost the time I wake up, I even think about it while I'm sleeping, and I'm still at times overwhelmed on it. I was at IFMA conference, and we did a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and the word that kept coming up is people were afraid, uncertain, anxiety around that. So the question is really, how can you begin for this? And I like to look at this in a sense of a maturity capability. How ready are you? Where can you start within it? And my recommendations when we start to look at this is to take one small thing and look to apply it, and then get success and get an understanding around that. We internally use AI for a lot of our work. I needed to create a manual, a user guide, for a new module that we're releasing. And what I did is I took all the specs that I had for that and I put it into our AI that we're using. In this case, it was ChatGPT. And I said, go ahead, give me a user guide for it. And it was great. It cut out about 50% of my work. It wasn't done. It wasn't like, okay, great, now I'm handing this over. I needed to go through it. But I picked one thing to do that. And the more focused you are, the more you're able to pilot things, you're able to understand that. Also work with your IT organization. What are you allowed to do within AI? Within that. This can all be turned off for clients, so we're not forcing clients to do that. We're not putting any of our client data into the LLM for that, but we are using our experiences around that in order to improve and to understand what we're doing. All right, so I left us some time for some questions on that. And so looking at the question box that we have there. Okay. So I covered the one about the chatbot. What data is used in the chatbot, I covered that. Is AI part of occupancy or is it a separate module? So the way in which we're rolling this out is an overall workplace set of solutions for that. And so if you're using just our occupancy module or if you're using just our reserve module, what we want to do is bring you up to our overall workplace solution. And from our workplace solution, that's when you'd be able to get the AI capabilities within that as well. So it said, since part of reserve, it will only use badge data. What about other occupancy data points? So this is, again, that, thinking about siloed approaches to an overall system approach. For our clients that are our legacy Agile Quest, our reserve clients, they're used to, they can bring in badge data into that, but we have now a whole platform that brings the badge. We'll bring the reservation data. We can also augment that with Wi-Fi or network data as well in order to improve the accuracy and the amount of data that you have. The more refined of information I have, the better we'll be able to make predictions. Obviously, if I had sensors and I knew every single seat was occupied different times, it would be great data. That's really expensive. And the question we have all the time, we have these debates, is, is that additional accuracy worth the cost that's there? We think that, you have to find the right tool for the right problem that you're solving. I can change a Phillips head screw with a flathead screwdriver. It's not the right tool for it. It's harder to do it, but it's possible depending upon the size of that. So think about everything that we have in workplaces, all these different tools that are in your tool chest. And we want to try to align our clients with the right set of tools for the right job. It makes it much easier for them and it allows them to build and expand upon that. So yes, you do need to opt in on using the AI. We're not going to turn that on for clients. We're not training with your data. This is for the chatbot. It is something that will be turned on as a client, gets the right modules as well as the ops for that capabilities with that. Yeah, analysis by paralysis. We had that conversation again here a lot, where it's the questions that you need to answer really depend upon, the level of data really depends upon the questions. If I'm making a lease renewal or not renewal option or question, I could get by with higher level data. I get by with just building badge data if I can, or some information that gives me directional what's there. because it's a much broader, it's a bigger discussion there. As I get to more and more refinements, I want to bring in other data there. So if I'm getting into how much departments need, how many seats does the department need on this particular floor, I may need to get other information there. I could start to use badge, and I can make assumptions that the people that are badging in, what department they're in, and be able to do that. But if I wanted to understand how many drop-in spaces I need, that people are just coming in and doing that, I may need to get to something like our network or Wi-Fi. So, one of the things that, I talk about with my team a lot, and we talk with clients, is you could make really good decisions today with what data you have, and then you can always refine. You can say, did that work for us? So I start to use my automatic reblocking tools, and I have a floor plan that's there. I'm going to take that floor plan, and I'm not going to blindly go and do that. I'm going to go and work with a line of businesses. I'm going to say, this is what we're thinking, how we're doing that. Are you okay if we're going to remove these amount of data? And you have those conversations. That it becomes a starting point. It gives you options to have that, and it's it will never. I'm not trying to replace all the space planners. What I'm trying to do is take a lot of the heavy stuff that we've been doing for years and let the system do it, freeing you up to really bring your interactions with the lines of business and really bring your particular expertise into play there. So it's, does it matter that I've gone from a 90% accuracy to a 95% accuracy in something? It's all context. It probably doesn't. So I would say always do a decision and then build upon that and learn from that and then go forward onto that. All right. Polly, sorry, Nicolette, are there any other questions?
I think you covered them all. We missed one, just to confirm. Someone was asking what it means to be a part of the Tango workplace environment or ecosystem. That is space, occupancy, and reserve. And that's
visitor.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah. If you're using any of those, you are part of workplace. And now we have to figure out how we get the different capabilities connecting to each other in your instances. So new clients coming in today, a lot of them are coming in as workplace. They'll come in with space and reserve, or space and occupancy. And then from there, we're able to build upon that.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, audience, for all the questions. If we didn't get to, go ahead, Ross.
Yeah, I want to thank you all for your time. If any of you are going to be at Cornet, happy to see you. I will be there at the end of this month. Stop by the booth. I'll be giving a similar presentation to this on the Learning Center area. And then if any of you from London or Europe, my colleagues will be over in the Work Tech, which is a great show as well. So if you're around, please stop by. And love to meet all of you in person.
Awesome. Thank you, Ross. And yeah, again, thank you, audience. If we didn't get to any of those questions, we'll follow up with you offline. I want to plug one last time that this was the finale to our Modern Workplace series. So you can find the first 4 of those in the related content module on your screen. You can tune in for some more great content. Thank you, Ross, and thank you, audience. We'll see you on the next Tango webinar.